This is Counterpoint, and I'm your host, Tanya Granick-Allen. We hear the term woke often in contemporary society. It is a term used to describe social justice activists and issues, especially those surrounding diversity, equity policies, and usually equated with left-wing politics. Call it cultural Marxism or socialism or what have you. In the past decade, woke politics have dominated society. But just how woke is the West? Do Canadians care about these issues, and are they embracing this new ideology? And what's so wrong with this ideology anyhow? Well, joining me now is Eric Kaufmann. He's a senior fellow with the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and professor of politics at the University of Buckingham in the UK. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to dive right in because, as I said in my opener, this seems to permeate so much of society nowadays.
Well, it sure does, Tanya. And I think the first thing to start off with is really what we're talking about, because the term is often used as a term of abuse or it's stretched to cover everything from vaccines to the environment, which I think is a sort of incorrect use of this. The way I use this term is really the making sacred of historically marginalized race, gender, and sexual minority groups. That's really the central definition of what woke is. Now, from that, it follows a couple of things. One, anything that can be perceived as offending a member of one of these totemic groups, however hypothetically offending, is out of bounds, and you can be excommunicated for that. It's a sort of profaning of the sacred. The other part or component to it is equal outcomes. So this is where quotas and affirmative action and closing of any kind of gaps based on race and gender is simply an outrage and therefore has to be closed.
Now, I consider you some kind of an expert on this. I mean, you actually teach a course in what woke ideology is. Tell us about this course that you teach.
Yeah, I mean, so many books are coming out, and this is being mentioned in the press so much since 2015, and yet there's almost complete radio silence out of academia other than to criticize those who are anti-woke. And I think it's just important to take this set of beliefs seriously as an ideology like any other, like liberalism, socialism, fascism, environmentalism. I mean, it's an ideology, it has a structure, it has a set of beliefs. And I think we need to study, at least on my course, which is open to the public, and quite a few Canadians, I'm Canadian myself, of course, are on it. We look at the intellectual history and the origins of these ideas, and then we look at sort of the public opinion, which groups in society are more likely to answer yes to a question measuring a woke attitude or not. And then the politics of the culture wars, finally, and the philosophy behind this.
Now, many Canadians may feel that this woke ideology is relatively new. As a child of a communist immigrant, I kind of see some parallels. I'm like, oh, this probably started several decades ago. When, in your opinion, or based on your research, when did this ideology first emerge, and where did it come from?
Well, really, in a very deep way, you could say the origins go back as long as the Enlightenment and even back to Christianity in some ways. But certainly, there are three real strands to focus on. One is egalitarianism, this push for equal outcomes. Another is humanitarianism, this idea of being nice or kind to the weak. And to some degree also a version of liberalism, this idea of difference and novelty and change as being better than tradition. Those are all strands that are implicated in this. I would say it really comes to fruition in the late 1960s, however, when you get the emergence of Black power radicalism and the emergence of the new left. And all of a sudden, race and identity politics becomes a lot more central. And that focus away from class on the left towards race and feminism and later LGBT is really the key to understanding woke, which is, again, the sacralization or making sacred of these historically marginalized groups. And that's the key moment in the 60s. And so I will always say what we're talking about is really nothing new. You can look at debates in the late 80s and early 90s over the curriculum, over multiculturalism, Afrocentrism. They sound very similar. You had speech codes, you had cancellations occurring. It's just that the scale wasn't as great and it was largely confined to the campus. The big change now is because of social media and the smartphone. As Andrew Sullivan says, we all live on campus now. So these this set of ideas has really spread off the
Right,
campus
right.
into youth culture, into all kinds of institutions like corporations.
Excellent. Well, we're going to pick up this discussion because it's fascinating right when we
Okay.
return from this commercial break.